Mutant soldiers vomiting into their gas masks, sentient bulldozers with rabies, and wheelchair-bound stalkers aggressively throwing unidentified bodily fluids at you is just a small peek at the attractions that HROT has to offer. And all of it takes place in a unique setting of socialist magical realism filled with strangeness, mystery, and violence. HROT is a fast-paced boomer shooter, which means it's fueled by nostalgia and decades-long video game cynicism. Like a true exemplar of tradition, it rejects decadent ideas, such as aiming, using cover, and getting tired. Instead, it rewards moving fast and being spastic, using explosives in a casual manner, and throwing grenades into ladies' restroom. I have a problem with the term boomer shooter. I would just call it a regular shooter, or even a better name, a shooter that isn't shit. But since I grew up playing Unreal Tournament and QUAKE 3, it immediately makes me an out-of-touch 97 years old screaming at clouds while a gentle hand of the current generation unplugs my respirator. Howdy, I'm Spigazu. Excuse my lizard form. Today I will be your tour guide to the magical, whimsical land of post-apocalyptic Czechoslovakia. Do you like QUAKE but think it had too rich of a color palette? Do you think the Cold War would be a complete package if the Eastern Bloc experienced interdimensional rioting and had gene-splicing political elite? Then this is a game for you. We start in claustrophobic industrial corridors with no backstory nor explanation. There was a mysterious accident and now we are being shot at by people in gas masks. It's all very dark, rusty and sterile. Pieces of propaganda are scattered here and there. Restrained but efficient environmental storytelling deepens the mystery. The more we play, the more environments we explore and the weirder things get. The gameplay is smooth and simple. You move fast, jump a lot, and choose the best tactic based on the type of enemies you encounter. The levels are quite complex and they require you to find specific keys to unlock new areas, meet new friends and kill them. There are also secrets you can find by blowing up walls or blowing up yourself. This is a mix of a couple of games in particular. Obviously, the original QUAKE, but also the lesser-known shooter called Chasm Rift. In fact, I reckon I could put both of these games side by side and you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. I mean, I wouldn't know. I never played Chasm the Rift. I just plagiarized what G-Man Lives said. Go watch his video and tell him that Slav QUAKE is just QUAKE, but with amateur Russian overdub in a crypto miner running in the background. HROT is set in communist Czechoslovakia. It tells a tragic tale of what a close proximity to Soviet Union and Poland, as well as no access to the sea, does to a society. There is a brief mention of a disaster that happened in 1986. It's unspecified, but would have to be a major dummy not to figure out what disaster they actually mean. Gas masks, industrial setting, the ambience that imitates the clicking of the Geiger counter. Yep, you're correct. Is the release of Laputa the Castle in the Sky, the first movie by Studio Ghibli, which brought the disease of anime to this peaceful and unsuspecting European nation. The game currently has 2 episodes, 8 levels each. The second episode, The Degustation, was released in June 2022. It's a creation of one person called Spitieniev, who I imagine looks like a typical, talented Czech individual who will probably release episode 3 as soon as they're done watching hockey and weaponizing cheese. On to the game. At our disposal, we have a standard set of tools for solving problems in our cozy Czechoslovak neighborhood. Gun but double. Big gun but double. Gun but shoots fast. Gun but shoots slow. Gun but shoots grenades. Grenades but with no gun. Grenades but with no throw. Farming equipment. Holy shit, is that a Rocky IV reference? And a shoe. That was a luxury item imported directly from the West, hand-stitched with full-grain leather, which causes our enemies' asses to violently burst in half just from sheer envy. Also, don't forget, extra-rare therapeutic ray, developed by Soviet experts from concentrated Thor's ejaculate. It cures gaming addiction, kills communists, and doesn't make you straight. Enemies have the same archetypes, for the lack of a better word, as in QUAKE. The weakest ones are, appropriately, Polish shysters, who take you for a secret IRS agent who had discovered their piles of unpaid invoices and illegally hired underpaid Ukrainian immigrants. Those sneaker ones have developed additional techniques of avoiding financial responsibility and mastered the power of teleportation so they can attack you from behind. I cannot dismiss their ingenuity, but there is a problem. It's an isolated area, which means, my dear friend Janusz, the vanquisher of health and safety, I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me. And now you get to perpetuate the stereotype about your people as very brave and very short-sighted. Tall and lanky humanoids with shotguns are challenging to kill, especially in larger groups. They deal significant damage and move fast, in a creepy, jittery manner. I guess tall people in general look like mini Slenderman, and they should just accept the fact that looking like a disproportionate, flashy lamppost will always be their only personality trait. But you know what's scarier than tall people? Fat people who will throw grenades at you just like ogres in QUAKE, unless you get close to them. Then they will resort to a good old police brutality. Not very threatening, but can reduce your health fast. These detached flying heads are mutated cloned heads of Lenin, and they throw conjunctivitis at you and are nowhere near as frustrating as scrags in QUAKE. For balance, there are also detached mutated buttholes on legs, which someone decided to put in the freezer. There are various animals as well. Dogs, rats, bulldozers, a vengeful spirit of Harambe, communist spiders, by which I mean skinny from starvation. When did this become more beautiful than this? They are easy to kill, annoying in large groups, and create another unrealistic beauty standard in our society. The horse in a gas mask can actually pose a challenge. It's a reference to a mythical horse, Shemik, that belonged to Lord Horemir, who was sentenced to death for being a reactionary hippie, trying to prevent famine by opposing a 5-year plan of excessive silver mining ordered by a greedy prince. What a jerk! As his last wish, Horemir wanted to ride Shemik and used that opportunity to flee. The horse magically jumped over the castle walls and broke all of his limbs and died. Here is a reference to an old legend and the closest thing that Czech will ever get to having a seahorse. There is also a fatphobic demon that will... Are you ready for peak comedy? Exercise every sinful calorie from your body and will motivate your grind with a healthy dose of rocket-propelled grenades. And this guy, who lifts a barrel full of sauerkraut to imitate Atlas and express his objectivist worldview, trying to rise above the adversities of the grim world in a blind pursuit of the mastery of oneself. Just like Ayn Rand has preached the value of being a self-interested rationalist whose struggle, unrestrained by religious and societal creeds, elevates him to the highest form of man, truly self-reliant and indomitable. Yet, by likening himself to Atlas, who carries the weight of the world, he couldn't realize the sad futility of his actions, as he was blinded by self-important martyrology. His worldview slowly crumbles as he comes to terms that he doesn't exist in an empty void, and there was no objective reality, just flawed perception focused on the shadows projected on the wall of a cave. And when he finally averts his gaze from the shadow play, he notices the light coming from a fire, and in that fire burns morality. He is just like many others who carry the burden of the world's hardships, a product of circumstance, as he is credulously trying to give some honorable meaning to his suffering. But you can only lift the world or the sauerkraut barrel for so long until your back breaks and you realize that you were no Atlas, but you were Sisyphus all along. And as the reality sets in that his heroes and idols were favored by the random whim of a circumstance, and that the invisible hand of the market will not give him a prostate massage, he tragically decides to stop his fruitless pursuit and blows himself up right in your fucking face. The locations we visit may not be very detailed, but detailed enough to recreate the socialist style and looks, propaganda posters and statues, Soviet-style furniture and architecture, typical Soviet carousels with rocket launcher gorillas, Morrowind references. world's worst chamber pots, and some objects you can interact with. You can read a book, play music, listen to a radio, which, if you tune it well, you can hear the buzzer, which is the creepypasta name given to a real-life ghost radio in Russia, which has been playing eerie buzzing sounds for over 40 years, occasionally interrupted by cryptic numbers and code words. This whole conspiracy theory is a cool rabbit hole to go down, as you can listen to that radio online. If you have forgotten to take your schizo meds and need a more socially acceptable occasion to wear your tinfoil hat. There are also toilets with an unflushed turd free of charge. You can play these primitive handhelds based on their old Russian cartoon Nu Pogodi. In English, it's Well, Just You Wait. Basically Tom and Jerry, but with a wolf and a rabbit. It's just catching eggs, but it really unlocks a memory I don't want unlocked. Oh no. Oh god. You can also kiss Mikhail Gorbachev right in the entry point of his interdimensional brainworm. Honestly, when you think about it, in the old communist world, you could do everything you can do in the West today. Get spied on by your phone, watch a boring stream, kick stray dogs in the face, develop alcoholism, destroy public property, realize it wasn't a regular booze and now you're tripping balls, get eaten by the fish living in the sewer, discover corpses of children and desecrate them for fun or for profit. Simp on 2D waifus, go to the cinema and watch repetitive propaganda. Fight off bird flu, play soccer all by yourself and lose because you suck, and enter a school with a brand new, fully loaded handheld console. So now, everyone wants to be your friend. Under communism, you didn't even have to worry about expensive healthcare. Need an X-ray? Make it 4 million X-rays for free! I love the atmosphere of this game. It's spooky and mysterious. The pompous and exalted communist slogans are surrounded by this gritty world of twisted science and occult magic, creating a creepy contrast. There are places that look real, familiar, even nostalgic, but they are all connected by this confusing, borderline dreamlike geometry and supernatural aura. The majority of enemies look human, but not too human, so you're never sure how deep the sinister magic has seeped into this world. There's this warped nostalgia permeating through the game. Childhood memories you don't want to go back to, filled with mysterious messages and animals in BDSM outfits. It's basically an orgy of socialist Czechoslovak Easter eggs, stuff for old boomers to point out and recognize, while traumatic memories of empty stores and secret police resurface in their fragile minds. Real-life locations which you can visit in the game are Vyšehrad Castle, Točník, Velhartice, Dobroshov Fort. Kashperk Castle, Granny's Valley, is inspired by Babičino Údolí, where the famous 1853 Czech novel The Grandmother takes place. Koruna, Czech currency, is a reference to a joke about how Soviet veterans wore so many medals it made them bulletproof. Rude Pravo, the official newspaper of the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia. Klement Gottwald, the main boss of episode 1, was the country's leader from 1948 to 1953, despised for his brutal persecution of political opponents. The mausoleum entrance is inspired by the national monument on top of the Witkov Hill in Prague, where Gottwald's body was kept soon after his death. The name of the episode 1, Kiss Me Gustav, is a reference to Gustav Husak, who served as president from 1975 to 1989 and kissed Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev in this historical photo. Also the boss of episode 2. Gustav Husak, not Brezhnev. "We wanted the best, but it turned out like always," is a quote from Russia's former Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin. Vodyanov is the name of a malevolent water spirit from Slavic mythology that drowns innocent people or keeps them as slaves. Honestly, this game has the potential to be a great horror shooter with its overall ambience and lighting. It doesn't really fulfill that potential. There are places where you need to use your flashlight, but they're pretty rare. Until episode 2, which is just what I needed. It explores HROT's spookier side, doubles down on the paranormal, it's even weirder, and even tries to scare you. It also adds new terrifying enemies, such as medieval reenactors, the disabled, the elderly. Logan! Logan! Go get the camera! I found another one! The levels are set in gothic castles, a mine, and countryside. There's more variety to our actions, and at one point we collect hallucinogenic mushrooms and enter catacombs like every responsible stoner would. What I don't like in both episodes is the presence of automated turrets and choppers, which to me seem too modern and too out of place. Just make it a flying septic tank or something. I don't know. If you're not using this video as Sleepy Time ASMR and you're looking at the screen with your beautiful eyes, you'd notice that this game is very, very brown. At first I didn't like it, but then it grew on me and I started to appreciate it. At some point you start to see new colors and new shades of brown you have never encountered in your life before. Like Oak Whisperer, Lusty Beige, Phantom Dirt, Centaur Nostalgia, Bohemska Sračka, Dislikable Sand, Newcastle Sunshine, Moldy Fawn, Demented Rust, Chernobyl Sepia, Antiker Urschfall, Sexy Tumbleweed, Gears of War Birdseed, Raccoon Tapeworm, Sao Paulo Kidney Stone. I was thinking, what was the developer's motivation to set their Quake clone in a exaggerated communist dystopia? And I have a theory. An idea.
Oh, it does not work.
Just hear me out. For people growing up in the post-communist societies, that era is where various horror stories originate from. Stories experienced by the previous generations. That strange time that was so absurd, so miserable, and yet so distinct. You can't help but be morbidly fascinated by it. I don't know how old Spitinev is, but I can imagine they were told terrifying stories of a world that was basically sepia-tone backrooms with people waiting in long lines to the store, just to be greeted by empty shelves with nothing but vinegar and bad economic decisions. I believe this game is kind of a cathartic response to all these frightful tales. A mockery of corrupt political leaders who suppress freedoms, create scarcity, and shoot soul blades from their arachnid crotch when you stare deep into this brown mixture of historical traumas long enough. Just like staring into the bottom of a porta potty at a crowded festival. At some point, you start to see some intention behind it, some primitive architecture of meaning. You cannot tell the future from the content of the porta potty, but you can tell the past. And the past is known to be the best teacher, as those who ignore history are ultimately doomed to repeat it. I might be reading too far into that. After all, what should I expect from a nation that has created a TV show for children about a homosexual couple that tries to murder their landlord with a carbon monoxide poisoning? It doesn't work, so they have to resort to more conventional methods. In order to clean up the mess, they decided to hide his body behind a fake wall. Unfortunately, it didn't eliminate the dreadful stench. And since they couldn't get enough calcium oxide to dissolve him in a bathtub, they decided to dump him in the sewer. But the sewer opening turned out to be too small to fit a whole body. So the problem had to be compartmentalized. Eventually, in order to get their much needed protein, they ate the remains of their landlord themselves, donating leftovers to the hungry homeless and leaving only his head as Easter decoration. So, to summarize, HROT is a very fun shooter with an interesting atmosphere. I'm looking forward to episode 3. You should check it out. You're not laughing? Good! You weren't supposed to. It was a test. You passed! With flying colors. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed that video, then you're welcome. Subscribe for more quote-unquote content like this. I apologize for not having a script, I was just having a stroke for 20 minutes. And I hope your friends and family truly appreciate you for who you are. Okay, that's it, see ya later.